Another thing I need to deal with is to replace or repair the lead to the positive side of the coil from the ignition switch. It broke off at the terminal, so I'm going to pull the terminal off, replace it off the end of that wire that currently has a jumper clip to it. Okay, so there's the new terminal on there. And I don't know if the light reflecting on here is allowing you to see, but it's just below the add a quart, so I'll put a quart in. Okay, I got some more brake fluid because that was low. Well, I still have a good pedal. I did not expose the bottom of the reservoir. Very happy about that. The last thing to check is transmission fluid. I believe the dipstick is hiding. Now trust me, it's under there. We'll pull it out and see if we got anything registering on the end of the dipstick. Oh my goodness, there's lots. Well, that's because there's nothing in the torque converter. Nothing's pumped it in, but at least it's not dry, so stick it back in. Alright, so we have coolant, we have spark, we have the vacuum lines plugged off, we have fuel line in there, we have no fuel in the gas tank. We have a battery connected, but it's a dead battery, and I doubt that it'll take a charge, but I'm going to jump it with the Mustang when it's time to start it. So we need gas in the tank, but other than that, we should be good to go. I've pulled all 8 spark plugs. There they are. Some are dirtier than others. So I'm going to squirt a little oil down in each of the cylinders. One of the things I did do was attempt to get the engine to spin by turning the key and jumping it with the Mustang jumper cables there. And nothing happened when I turned the key other than lights did strange things inside on the dash. As you can see, I've got no dash, so I'm not sure what lights are doing what. Turn the key, and that comes on, which tells me that's probably the oil light or the brake light. When I go and crank it to on, I get another light coming on, but I don't know. Odd. Anyway, battery's got the charger on it. So I'm going to clean the spark plugs after I put a little oil in. I was able to attach a hot wire to the S or start terminal of the solenoid. And if I touch that into 12 volt source at the battery, when the jumper's on, the engine does turn. It turns slowly, but I think that's this old battery taking a drag on the electrical system. But without spark plugs, it should turn much quicker, and hopefully we'll get a oil light to go off. Alright, spark plugs are cleaned, all been gapped at 35 thousandths using that guy. Alright, when I took this all apart, I marked up, I don't know if you can see that, but that says battery light. And this one, right there, take my word for it, it says oil light. So I'm going to pull this bulb out and make sure it's still good, and also see if I've got 12 volts on the hot side of that lead. Alright, so we've got the bulb out. We're trying to touch and probe the center without touching the outside. So that means we do have 12 volts, which means that the oil pressure switch seems to be in the closed position. I checked the bulb. The bulb seems to have continuity, so it doesn't appear to be blown out. So we'll stick the bulb back in and see what happens. I back probed that socket and connected it through my test light to the negative terminal, and with the key in the on position it is illuminated, so there appears to be a ground issue on the blue wire coming off of there that'll have to get fixed. So now as we spin the engine, we can watch the test light to see if it goes out, which means we have oil pressure. Now I did check the oil level and it's fine. Alright, it did not obviously go out, unfortunately, but we're going to still put the plugs back in. I think with the oil lubricating the walls, I'll double check the oil pressure, and we'll go from there. So that's not hooked to anything, it's just hanging out there being in the way. So I am going to remove it because I can't get that spark plug that goes under there in. It'll be easier to take out the bolts than it will be to fight with getting that plug in. So off it comes. Alright, the air conditioning compressor has a lead there, which is for turning on and off the clutch, engaging, disengaging the electrical clutch on this. When the belt is always spinning when it's connected, and the clutch is either in or out based upon whether there's 12 volts coming through or not, and it plugs underneath here. So I'm going to unplug that, undo the ground here, and get the electrical wire out of the way, put a tape on it and say what it is, and then we'll move on to the bolts. We have a large space with free access to spark plug holes. Yay! There it is back in there. And this is what we pulled out. And I've left the bolts and the spacers on there. And they will all go in the loose parts will go in a Ziploc bag. And then get zip tied to the bracket. And then this will just get put away for a while. Alright, one of the things that we're going to do is check for spark, and I've got my timing light connected. I've got the jumper cables connected. The timing light is connected to number 1, but it doesn't matter. I could have done it to any of the spark plugs. It's also tied to positive and negative. I need to go over and turn the key on, which will energize the coil. My jumper wire, spark plugs are back in. Let's see what happens. We're looking at a new battery. What we can do is just disconnect the battery. See if disconnecting the battery, taking it out of the load, and just going jumper to jumper, we'll see what happens. Alright, so I disconnected the negative. We're just deadheading down into the battery, but that's not going anywhere, so it shouldn't be a drag. And we'll go ahead and Engine is still not turning. So I think not turning fast enough. I think we're doomed to spend the money on a new battery.